Lawyers can't control their own defendants, especially defendants, their clients like Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to be there. He will be there. And he has other motivations. It's about the optics. He's the leading candidate for president, and he wants people to believe that I am aggrieved. I could be in Iowa right now, but I have to be here. When in reality, he was missing a golf match by being in court.
Excellent.
But it's all about show.
Yeah, well, we definitely know that for sure, that the former president does have a reputation for being quite a showman.
This is how he every day.
This is how he operates.
Yep.
And as we were just alluding to, this is just one case that he is facing, and it's a civil case. He's facing a multitude of criminal cases as well. And the one I think that has been the most interesting over the course of the last several weeks is Georgia, the racketeering case.
Yeah.
There's now been, 4 plea deals?
Some high profile
including
ones.
Jenna Ellis, Sidney
Meadows.
Powell, Mark Meadows.
Scott Hall.
Do you think this is just dominoes that are going to fall one by one? How do you think this is going to play out?
I think there'll be more defendants copying the plea. They're going to get FOMO, these other defendants. Fear of missing out.
And there's 14 others here that we are considering?
Yeah, look at this. If you're on YouTube, you can see all the mugshots.
Look at that.
We've got them in 2 different columns now.
Yeah, see,
Plead guilty, plead not guilty.
All those folks on the right, they all have FOMO. They are worrying that the longer they wait, the worse the deal will get. Right now, the folks on the left, if you're on YouTube, you can see the 4 of them.
Yeah.
They got plea deals with no jail time. They were facing years in prison, but first one in is the first to win. That's something defense lawyers like to say. If you get in first, the prosecutor's door, you get the best deal. But that door is closing soon. And I anticipate that future plea deals, maybe not yet, but pretty soon they'll start including incarceration.
Wow. What do you make of the Meadows deal specifically, as compelled as I am to talk about Sidney Powell at any turn? The idea here, and we've heard a lot of people suggest this, including Chris Christie yesterday, of course, a former prosecutor, you don't just cut a deal with the chief of staff who was clearly involved in this and may well deserve to be punished for his role that he played unless he's really got some important information. Was that the deal that closes the walls in on Donald Trump?
Well, we don't know, Joe, whether Mark Meadows cut a deal with prosecutors other than receiving immunity to testify before the grand jury. So apparently he spoke to Jack Smith's team 3 separate times this year and testified before the grand jury. You cannot force someone to self-incriminate unless you give them immunity at the grand jury. That's what happens. So they call him before the grand jury. They say, we're going to give you immunity, and then he testifies truthfully. But as far as whether he entered into a non-prosecution deal where I will be a cooperating witness in return for your not prosecuting me, that's not clear. It'd be up to ultimately Jack Smith and Mark Meadows whether it goes that far. But for right now, I'm just thinking he just testified before the grand jury, got immunity for his testimony, and I can't extrapolate beyond that.
That's really something. And we should clarify that is the January 6th case here in Washington. And I'm actually curious, the Sidney Powells and the others you mentioned in Georgia, Kaylee, are they also talking to Jack Smith at the same time?
There's no indication that Sidney Powell is talking to Jack Smith, but it looks like Mark Meadows' people wanted us to know that he was talking to the grand jury, to Jack Smith, for whatever reason. Now, what's interesting is, how does Fani Willis take this? Fani Willis has got to be concerned that she really should not try to use the information that Mark Meadows gave to Jack Smith under immunity against him in the state case, because then there are some complex issues of whether state prosecutors can feed off of the information where he was granted immunity. There was an Oliver North case. You remember that guy?
Of course.
He was ultimately cleared, or at least found the case was thrown out against him because of those types of issues. So prosecutors are very careful. So I think what's going to happen is she's going to continue to go after Mark Meadows, who is an indicted individual in Fulton County, based on the evidence she accumulates, not on the evidence that Jack Smith gives her.
But overall, Mark Meadows aside, with the other plea deals that have now been entered, her job is getting easier, not harder, generally, right?
It is definitely getting easier when you have a number of your co-defendants flip, because 19 co-defendants, that's very difficult. And in a RICO case that takes months to try, what was going to happen is you had 2 people, Cheesebro and Sidney Powell, who requested speedy trial. They were going to be tried first. They were going to give Donald Trump a dress rehearsal. They were going to expose the state's arguments. It was to Donald Trump's benefit. But now they're out of the way. So not only does Donald Trump not get to see an advance copy of the prosecution, he also could be tried before the election. Had the others been tried first, it would have pushed his case beyond the election, but now there's no one to wait for.
That's incredible. And something that we have to remember with, as we juggle for indictments, with all of that said, you consider his life over the next year as he's running for president. You made the point, hey, I wish I could be in Iowa, but I'm here in court. On some days, that might actually be true, and his campaign will need him to be in certain places. How much flexibility will he have to actually run for president while he's managing all these?
That's a really good question because we don't know the schedule yet. I do believe the case that will happen before the election is the case in D.C. that we've been discussing. Yep. Judge Chutkan, she's not fooling around. And that case from Jack Smith is built for speed. There are no other co-defendants. There are unindicted ones, but not indicted ones. There are only 4 counts against Trump because Jack Smith wants that to happen before the election.
That's right.
And I think it will. So can he campaign fully while being put on trial? I don't know, but I don't think, or I'm not certain that the other cases will happen before the election. I think because of the plea deals, now it's a better chance the Fulton County one happens before the election. But I think the strongest case against Trump is the one in my neck of the woods.
The documents case.
The documents case. They got them dead to rights there. But you got Judge Cannon, who's not quite Judge Chutkan. She's new, and she is slow walking this thing. And I think that case is going to get pushed beyond the election.
And if we're saying then beyond the election, he very well could be president at that time, right? So how would does that mean that this case just never gets tried? I feel like that's where we get into really murky waters. Are you now having a sitting president of the United States on trial?
Oh, I don't think it's murky for him at all. I think that's his only defense, that he has no defense to the documents case. They got him. His only defense is become president and then order his Department of Justice to drop the case. That's what he'll do, and the case goes bye-bye. The trickier one is what happens if he's convicted in Atlanta or in New York, which also could happen before the election.
He can't pardon himself in the state case.
He can't pardon himself. You know what will happen? So if he becomes president and he's convicted or they keep trying to prosecute him, he'll say, okay, New York, okay, Georgia, I'm surrounded by my Secret Service here in the Oval Office. Come and get me. Yeah.